And I think this is very true of every single company that I come across in hard-to-abate sectors. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to do all the things we want them to do, but it is on their agenda because it cannot be anything other than on their agenda, for one very simple reason. Ultimately, all of this comes down to value and finance. And the concept of, we speak about this concept of climate risk in abstract terms. Climate risk, for me, is financial risk. If you refuse to consider the implications of both the physical risk of climate and transition risk, CBAM being the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which is a very good example of how a transition risk can not just damage the value of your company, it can destroy it. So these companies are starting to, in some cases. In many other cases, they are well down the road of getting across the challenge that's in front of them. The question you raised then is a question of cost, but the cost of doing nothing is actually greater than the cost of doing something. And that's the message that we need to convince people. Do nothing, your investors will crucify you. That is, to me, is abundantly clear. Investors themselves are on a journey of understanding the risks. They are going to move their capital somewhere else. And if you look at initiatives like the EU taxonomy, if you look at the GFANZ initiative, investors, both debt and equity, are coming under extraordinary pressure to repivot and reposition their capital elsewhere. So that, for me, is how you should start thinking about cost. And then when you think about the different types of decarbonisation solutions and the innovations which are critical, this is the crazy, crazy thing. Some of these solutions actually save money. I'll give you a couple of examples. Power purchase agreements. For years, I've been saying to corporations, please, think about the concept of sourcing your electricity to deal with Scope 2 from renewable energy producers. I said, not only does it help you with your net zero target, but it gives you long-term price certainty. Those corporates who entered into 10-year PPA agreements in the last 10 years, working with people like myself and many others, cannot thank us enough, because now they're looking at the high prices they could have been paid, or they could have been paying if they had pursued the merchant route. Today, yes, there was some upfront cost involved, but they are making incredible savings given the current price of electricity. First example. Second example, energy efficiency, which I describe as the unloved child of the climate revolution. Proper implementation of energy efficiency solutions not only reduce your energy consumption and your carbon emissions, but they can save you money. And again, I keep coming back to an issue around communication, education, and understanding. We have to get away from this concept that this agenda is all about cost. Do nothing, it's definitely about cost. Do something, yes, I'm not denying that there are costs involved, but think of the longer term position, and some of those solutions do save cost as well.
Well, it's all true, but let's be more practical from the European perspective. What can we do here in Germany? So I already mentioned we are creating a completely new energy world, right? This is hydrogen-based stuff and so on. And we do have to take this opportunity. We do have to take this opportunity and put it much more in the focus. And then there is competition. We need competition. And if I would be an investor, I would really focus on these new and upcoming companies offering solutions, because they are much faster. They don't have like big CEOs and stuff like that and to discuss all the things they have in their backpack and so on. They can just move, and they make pilots, and they can show success, and we have so many technologies available. So that is very important. And then for politics, stick to the targets. Again, stick to the targets, stick to the targets. Whatever war there might be, stick to the targets. And create markets. I mean, in our alliance, I was already mentioning, and I see Philip here all the time from Breakthrough Energy, but this is so important. Those politicians here, they have to create markets. And I mean, in the European Union, we have 2.5 billion for public procurement. If we would really want to change something, then we would create an innovative public procurement market in Europe. And then, of course, all of you and all these startups and new technologies would suddenly get so many offers for jobs and for projects that they would show what is possible, and that would probably help us all over the world. So I think we are just about there. We're just about there to show what is possible, and there are so many people in this innovation community and so many investors who saw that. Just keep on working hard on it.
I think we have a question at the back. I think one of the mics are working. If you can press it down.
But may I add something about how to abate before the question?
Of course,
because,
if you don't mind.
Yeah, in addition to what has been said, I insist on this human dimension. And on the
no, finish. I'm gonna utilize my mic to get the question, but finish your thought, Carlos.
Okay. Because if we don't involve people from all the human community, and in particular from the hard-to-abate sectors in this conversation, it ends up being something like blaming them, finger-pointing, and sticks and carrots, you know? You can engage them in the conversations, recognizing that they are, as we all are, stuck in frameworks which do not enable them to do what would needed to be done, you know. And I've participated in the EU project of responsible research and innovation. We have good ideas around. The idea of making research and innovation responsible is a very good one, and it has been quite developed. And in that project, we discussed with representatives from the plastics industry in Austria, and at some point, one of them asked himself, do we have a right to exist? Does this industry, which I'm representing, has the right to exist? That's the kind of questions you get when you really open your mindset. You raise to another level of consciousness, if you wish. And from there, and then he decided to become an evangelist for decarbonization of their industry. And he's doing now a fantastic work of evangelizing all the actors in that industry around that.
Sometimes innovation requires you to put your ego aside and actually, perfect, excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, this actually fits very nicely to what I was going to say. I don't want to take too much of the time to talk about it now, because we will cover it tomorrow in the session on the Cleantech leaders. But my idea.
Quick introduction, please.
Yeah, my name is Jessica. I will be the moderator of tomorrow's session. I work for the Investment Technology Promotion Office in Germany, but I'm based in Vienna at the UNIDO headquarters. And in the preparation, we were thinking a lot about how to bring more diverse perspectives to the decision-making tables, and we realized that a lot of those panels are set up, of course, of white male colleagues, yeah? And if you look at the data, though, there's already data existing on that companies with a higher level of women in leadership are actually more likely to reduce energy and consumption, advance greener processes, and innovate with more environmentally sustainable alternatives. So my suggestion would be, or I would like to hear about your opinion, whether this is something that you've considered to just bring more diverse perspectives to the table. Thank you.
How many women are in your team? And I think KPMG has a good record of that. So Michael, you're safe. But do tell us.
Yeah. 58% women at German Energie-Agentur. But you're perfectly right. I mean, that's true. If you talk to people on the ground in countries wherever I'm traveling, it's sometimes funny. Huh? I mean, China, for example. I haven't been to China for a couple of years, unfortunately, because of Corona. Then you have all these bosses, and it's always great to talk to them. But you see that in the background, so many women are really doing the work, bringing things on the table and connecting people and stuff. So you're perfectly right. And I think that fits very much to the idea that we have to decentralize so many things. I mean, this energy food nexus, it both has a decentralized root. So the food problem we have is also because of the energy prices right now. Yeah, but that is also because we use so much gas now for these fertilizers and stuff like that, because we changed agriculture so much. We have to go back to decentralized ideas and components, and that is also good for the climate. That is also good for the communities. And in those communities, they are not only the guys who are running the business, it's very often the women. I mean, there's so much examples of it. So I perfectly agree on this, and I think it fits to the idea of a decentralized approach of solutions, and it fits to the idea of innovations, and it fits to the necessities we have to solve.
I think that diversity of thought is really important for so many things within leadership, but I think the big question here that we're running out of a little bit out of time, so if anybody has a question in the room before I start doing, yes, please. Let me get you the microphone. Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you.
For helping ourselves.
So I'm still a student, and I would like to refer to your first question. So we had to raise our hands if we're believing in innovation and that innovation is going to happen. But my question is, how can we reach this? How can we reach trust in our society? I mean, a big fact is transparency, and to get everybody access to information and also education, what Mr. Hayes said. So what do you think is a right way to just kind of make people believe in innovation and companies who are trying to innovate?
Michael, can I give that to you, and then Carlos?
I think I'm getting all the hard questions.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I like them. Let me turn this around a bit. This discussion has focused a lot on governments, a bit on companies, but actually what we haven't spoken about is global citizens. And I think if we're going to be successful on this agenda, not only do we need innovation, we need engagement of global citizens. And I speak about this quite a bit. It's great that people join marches and protest about climate. That's great, but that doesn't really move the dial in the way I think it needs to be moved. And we need to find ways to get global citizens, not just looking at corporations and big government, to get involved in this agenda. And when you talk to citizens who do care, they'd say, how do I participate? And so I'm just going to answer the question to say, we need to find a way. There are solutions being thought about, but I think it's going to be one of the next big discussion points on this agenda.
Andreas?
Great question. I mean, I believe in God and people, not in innovation. But people can make innovation. But I follow the discussions. Where are we talking about innovations? Are you talking with NGOs about climate change? Do they talk about innovations? If not, get involved. If you talk to politicians, yeah, they're talking about leaving coal and all these things. That is very important. But do they talk about innovation? Not enough. So get involved. And I think this is also very important. We have to bring all these people who will have success, these little Elon Musks we do have around, and they will come up pretty soon. We have to bring them on the table. We have to help them create networks, and we have to help them to get public. And that's our job when we talk to other people. And I sometimes see that these discussions are too much separated. We have COP, we have NGOs and stuff like that, and then there are these innovators. And that's not good. We all can change that.
Carlos?
Yeah, I would say open and widen the spaces for conversations as humans. So it's a mix of things which are related to, actually, to the cultural change which is already happening in society, and that we don't see maybe in the media. Maybe it's below the radar. I mean, the Extinction Rebellion, etc., that's just a manifestation, I think, of that, of something that our the founder of the Club of Rome, Aurelio Peccei, called a human revolution 40 years ago. And by the way, we have now 2 ladies co-presidents in the Club of Rome, but that's part of it, the human revolution, and it will not come, let's be honest, it will not come from the institutions. You have to make it. You know, you get involved, as Andreas was saying, but you get involved from a place of humanity, of reconnecting with our deep humanity and our capacities, because trust will not come by more declarations. If we hear politicians or leaders saying, trust me, of course you run away, right? Trust does not come that way. It comes by actions, when you feel, you know, and it's a human to human relationship. And in my view, it's basically a matter of assuming that we are all learners in this journey. And you, the young generations, you have to take a much more active role. And if I need some validation for that, I can use the words of the very recent words at the St. Gallen Symposium of the president of the Swiss Confederation, who said to the young people in the room, get involved, make a revolution if you wish, but please do something, literally.
So you just gave me my closing question, since we have about a minute left, a minute or two left. So if I extend by a minute or two, please forgive me. Some concrete takeaways that people in this room can go away with to think about innovation, how they do it. If I can start with all of you to give us some clear perspectives of young innovators in the room, how do they access markets or finance? What 2-3 things can they do at this point to not replicate, Michael, to use your words, other technologies that are happening? How do they make the networks or access the money to start making a traction in terms of what they're doing? What can they do? What is the key takeaway you'd leave them with that is concrete, actionable, as they go on this journey to innovate and to trust in the system?
So, nothing is my answer. They need to innovate. That's their job. That's what we're looking for them to do. It's people like me and others who actually need to create the conditions in which innovation can flourish. So I'm going to say something very, very quickly. I am absolutely convinced about this, and Peter's heard me talk about this before. Innovators innovate. It is not their job to raise money. It is not their job to go and find customers because, frankly, there's so much innovation required. So what I'm doing, it's a big, big public initiative. We're creating this huge digital cloud where innovators can think of this as a supermarket in the cloud, where we're going to bring innovators together, we're going to bring the financial community together, and we're going to bring industrials together. We're going to do it digitally because this is how you give innovators access to money and to the type of partnerships they need. And the plan is we're also going to bring academia and scientific organizations together into this concept. And we're working on this. I mean, we don't have time to describe it here, but we will be launching this at COP27 in Egypt later this year. But this is how we solve it. This is how we create the roadmap for innovators.
Andreas?
I like that answer, but maybe there's something else to add. I mean, again, I talk about this Tech for Net Zero alliance we have with Breakthrough Energy and 1.5. Where is Tobias? Don't see him right now. And others, you are part of it as well. I think that's an easy access platform where we, at least in Germany, and I think you do it in other European countries as well, bring together those people. Here you are. And just, we try to make those bridges he was talking about, but we need you as well. I mean, you must be ready. If we go to politicians and tell them, listen, this guy, speak to him for a while. So to help us make bridges between politicians who make decisions and those who innovate, focus on innovation, but have an open eye for those networks and get involved so that we can work together.
That's pretty concrete. Keep an open eye for those networks because otherwise your innovation will never be seen. Carlos, final word.
Well, it's a bit arrogant to say to anybody what she or he has to do, but my try would be first learn your own conditions for learning in the sense of changing. What makes you able to learn something new in the sense of changing deeply. The second is learn from life. As said before, nature is the most advanced technology we have by far. If you need a reference on this, I would definitely recommend reading a book by Lynn Gorison, a biologist, titled Natural Intelligence. And she's a biologist, but she advises companies on innovation. And her main message is nature has been innovating for such a long time, and she does that much better than we do. So there is for sure something to learn from living systems, from living beings, from ecosystems, how they innovate, how they change, how they evolve. And the third one would be learn from most of the world. Learn from other worldviews, but deeply. I mean, leave other worldviews, leave the questions, as Rilke said. Don't run for the responses. Leave the questions until you might realize that at some point you have started to live into the responses.
Thank you for that, Michael, Andreas, Carlos. Thank you very much for kind of setting the tone and also giving us a few tips and tricks of how innovation can keep going. Windows of opportunity to do this happen very rarely. We have one right now. It's time for us to get going. But thank you all very much for joining. And we will let you move on to the next session where Peter can tell us where it is.
Definitely. Thank you all. Thank you, Mike. Also, you made it, at least virtually. Next session will take place here. We just want to ask you, we do some technical reboot, and we'd like to ask you to be here back on time, because Eunji from UNIDO, Vienna, will lead us through green hydrogen clusters and how they can be built up. So we appreciate everyone's comments and your high-level ideas, and we now go into specific hydrogen clusters. Thank you so much.